And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where the electoral process is a sham, because this week we watched Free for All.
Written by Paddy Fitz, a.k.a. Patrick McGowan.
Directed by Patrick McGowan.
And aired on aired on aired on October 20th, 1967.
It was too good of a joke not to make.
Yeah.
It's like there's a joke in the Mr. Bean movie where he I don't remember the exact setup, but he participates in this movie and then he goes to the movie review and he's really excited to see his role, and then like the credits are rolling and I don't remember like the producer's name, but he was a super egomaniac for the whole movie. I'm just call him, I don't know, James. And then like the credits start rolling. It's like produced by James, written by James, starring James, music by James, cinematography by James. It just keeps going and going and going, and Mr. Bean's like wondering when his name's going to come up, and then it like doesn't show up, and then it turns out his like role was cut, and it's just literally just footage of James. I'll have to see if I can find it to put it in the show notes. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, and I've always wanted to like revisit that joke because my dad and I reference it all the time.
Wow.
But anyway, Free for All. I couldn't find a lot of production information for this episode, except that it was produced second. It was Paddy Fitz is Patrick McGowan's pseudonym that he took from. The Fitz comes from, I think, was it his mother's maiden name was Fitzpatrick, I think.
Yep. And then Paddy that's is like a stereotypical Irish name.
I saw some contention when I was trying to find production stuff. I saw some contention between different sites who like to break from the release order and create their own viewing order. Some contention between whether this one should come before or after Checkmate. And I forewent. What's the past tense form of forego? I forewent reading a lot of that contention because I didn't want to spoil too much for myself, especially since we haven't read or watched Checkmate. I don't know, watched Checkmate yet. So
forewent, according to Grammar Monster and Word Hippo.
Is it really forewent? Nice. That was a total random guess on my part.
Word Hippo, by the way, like I just realized within the past couple of weeks, is like the best online thesaurus. It's the best
well, with
a
name like that.
Because a lot of online thesauruses don't give you as many other words as Word Hippo does. Like, it gives you a lot of alternatives.
Wow. Well, that's useful, I guess. Good to know.
Yeah.
I don't typically need a thesaurus, so I don't know very many of them.
Oh, I have this thing open all day. I have thesauruses open all day, so that's why I just have Word
for
Hippo
your job,
open all day.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, my job is to do programming work, so I have programming documentation open all day. So I mean, like, I guess that's kind of the analog there.
Oh well, yeah. Now that I guess it's not programming, but now that I've been roped into doing HTML and CSS stuff, even though it wasn't part of the job description, I too have like W3 schools open all day. So my two mainstay tabs, Word Hippo and W3 schools. Anyway, that's totally unrelated to what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. Although I will say on one of these websites I looked at, they have a section for a TV show called Earth 2, which is a show I watched with my dad, and is only one season of 21 episodes. So if we ever need another short program to watch for this show, we should watch Earth 2, because I remember it just being hilarious in like how bad some of the episodes were.
What was that Will Smith movie with him and Jaden Smith, and they go to like a second...
After Earth.
Yeah, After Earth.
Earth 2 is a hilarious program because they go to another planet and they literally call it Earth 2. Which, like, wow, okay. And then for the next 16 episodes, the characters proceed to make the dumbest decisions possible, surviving on a planet that took them 5 years to get to, that they won't be able to have any help on if they get killed. Anyway, I'm very fired up about Earth 2. So if we ever do Earth 2, that's going to be like I'm gonna go in pretty hard on it, or I might like probably think it's not as bad as I thought it was the first time. But anyway,
Yeah, so Paddy Fitz is an interesting pseudonym because Paddy kind of sounds similar to Patsy, which is this is probably a stretch, but Patsy was like back when Ireland was a colony of England or Britain. Patsy was sort of a like, you know, if cops or officials or whatever were giving, you know, the townspeople a hard time or trying to figure out who committed a crime or whatever, the like answer that's now kind of a meme, I guess, or whatever, is like Patsy did it, and everyone would just say Patsy did it, but there wouldn't be like a real Patsy. So they'd just go on this wild goose chase for Patsy and never be able to find Patsy.
Patsy also has like a colloquial meaning now.
Which is what?
Which is like, it kind of, I guess from that came to mean like someone who's easily taken advantage of. You're a patsy. If you're easily cheated.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I was going to go for Paddy Fitz. Just sounds like Paddy, sounds like Patty with a T, which just sounds like Patrick. Yeah. So it sounds like he just took it from Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Or his actual first name.
Also, yeah, just, yeah.
Imagine if it was Patrick Fitzpatrick.
Some jokester out there has to have named their kid Patrick Fitzpatrick. What if it was Gooin McGooin?
Oh my god.
You know, after this episode, I'm going to redact my statement last week where I said McGooin wasn't smart enough to make the audience number one in Fallout. But I will say the TV show, there's no way that they would be ballsy enough to do that. Keon's probably over there sitting there like, haha, wait till you see what they actually do in Fallout. But anyway.
Exactly. There's every time I think of this show in Fallout, I know I've said this before, but my reaction is just like, how the hell were they allowed to do this? Like, how did they get funded this? How was this greenlit? How and why?
I was dangerously close to spoiling Fallout for myself this week. I was looking up Free-for-All. I saw the Prisoner wiki and I went there and it was talking about how this is the first time, at least if you go in airing order, that that number 6 asks who is number 1, and then the wiki, like the number 1 page popped up, is like on the side, you know, there's the recommended pages and there's like number 1, and then the first line of the article was like, in Fallout we learn, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you didn't have it spoiled for you.
Yeah, I noped out of that page pretty quickly.
Oh, so you actually clicked on the number 1 page?
Yeah, because I saw it on the side. I'm like, huh, interesting. Clicked on it. In Fallout, no, canceled. Just quit Firefox in panic.
Oh, glad to hear you're using Firefox.
I switched over from Safari a while ago.
Hell yeah. Anyway, I didn't really have too much making of stuff for this either. I think we're going into the territory now where there's not really much to find.
Yeah, my mysterious book hasn't arrived yet, so...
Yeah. I did have a few little tidbits. So apparently number 6's election picture, that black and white picture that they use, is actually Patrick McGoohan's official publicity picture, so another meta thing.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And then I also have that, apparently, this isn't just for this episode, it's for the whole show, but apparently the "be seeing you" phrase and gesture come from a 1949 movie called Don't Knock Yourself Out, which stars Eric Portman, who plays number 2 in this episode.
Whoa.
Bam.
Whoa. Why did you say bam? Like, you know, like, you just...
Because we finally figured it out, you know? That question that all 0 people asked. Where does the gesture and phrase come from?
I mean, like, before you revealed that, the answer was probably just, oh, like, Patrick McGoohan thought it looked cool, or, like, whatever. So
I didn't know that he didn't make it up, you know? I didn't know that he just took it from another movie. Or / TV show, or whatever the heck this thing is. It's a movie, yeah. But, hey. Also, yeah, so before we get into this, I just wanted to drop a little anecdote here. Felt it would be a good time since we barely have any making of stuff. So I know I've said this before, but I feel like I say it so infrequently that I have to say this every time I say it. But I'm like half Persian, so like a lot of my family is from Iran, and my mom and her siblings didn't live there for too long. But like I remember when I was talking to about this show to my uncle, he was like, "Oh yeah, I watched that in Iran. Like when I lived in Iran, like in the late '70s." And I was like, "What?" Like
Whoa.
I was totally in shock that they showed this show over there.
Did you then ask him what order it was broadcast in?
No, you probably didn't remember. But yeah, apparently he's a big fan of this show too. And yeah, I was shocked that they actually played this in Iran. Well, that was obviously before the Islamic Revolution or whatever. But
yeah, that's actually crazy.
Yeah. They probably just showed it like in English without subtitles and were just like, yeah, nobody's going to know what this is about, so we can get away with it.
Huh. Wow, that's super interesting. Everyone I've ever talked to the Prisoner about is just like, the what?
Yeah. I feel it's very unknown, like, in America, but...
Yeah, over here it doesn't seem to be as popular as it seems to be in, like, the UK.
Yeah, I posted about it on my personal Twitter, and, like, a bunch of people who I know are from the UK were like, oh yeah, it's a great show. But then seemingly no one from the US had any comment about it.
We do seem to pretty much restrict ourselves to British television programs, so
yeah,
should really broaden that horizon in future seasons of Inevitable.
We should, yeah.
Before we start, I want to throw out a theory that I was going to save to the end, but because I want to talk about it continuously throughout this whole episode, I'm going to throw it out right now. But while I was watching this episode, and with the whole 113, 113B thing, and with the 2A, 2B, 2C thing, I started to wonder what if, and the fact that we see multiple people with the same number, I started to wonder what if the numbers were not a designation for people, but you were assigned your number based on what job you did. Because number 2 always changes every week, but the continuing thread through number 2 is that they seem to be roughly in charge of the village. And we meet another number 54, the second 54 in this episode, and he seems... I don't know what job the first number 54 had, but they both seem to perform similar duties in the background and dress similarly. And then we meet 113 and 113B, who have basically the same job, the reporters. And so I was thinking, what if, like, when number 6, when they finally break, if they finally break number 6, they just take him out of the village or assign him a different number and a different job, and number 6 is always reserved for the mysterious kidnapped person who they're trying to interrogate.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory. Like, there's always a number 6, and he serves as, like, maybe that's another layer to this of, like, the people in the village think that they maybe of their own free will have like succumbed to the pressure of the village and are now living happily, but like there's always that like slight bit of hope, that there's this guy number 6 or whatever who is out here to break the system, but even that is like imposed by the system.
Yeah,
that's a scary thought. Yeah, and this episode kind of has those multiple layers to it when you find out at the end.
Yeah, this is the episode that kind of put that theory in my mind because of all the like duplicity of numbers in this episode, because there are quite a few numbers in this episode because I was someone, I guess, keeping track of the numbers who appear. Numbers in this episode are duplicated from before. There's a lot of stuff to do with black badges and who's got what number and stuff. So that's something I want to talk about throughout the episode. So I wanted to bring this theory up here because I'm going to talk about it for a while. Also, on one of the websites I looked at for this, someone mentioned that we basically never see the number 7 in anybody's number for the entire show, and whether or not that has any meaning or significance is up for debate. And then I was like, have we seen like not just the number 7, but the digit 7 in any of the numbers we've seen so far? And I was like, well, we've seen the 73, so I guess yes. But apparently we never like see number 7 anywhere, ever. So whatever that means.
Well, I mean, I don't think you see like 3, 4, or 5, I think. But yeah, that's interesting that like 7 itself, like not just number 7, but like you said, like the actual digit 7 is hardly used.
Something to think about, I guess, moving forward.
Yeah, there's been a lot of like numerology type stuff done about this series. I'm not particularly interested in any of that though. I think like even without that, the series is doing some really interesting stuff. So I always just focused on that and not gotten too caught up in the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Because you're not a number, you're a free man.
Yeah. Sure, let's go with that.
So we get the opening title sequence, and I wrote down a note here that I hadn't noticed in the previous episodes, but my favorite part of this stupid car that number 6 is driving is that he has to signal that he's going to turn with like his arm. He has to stick his arm out the door.
Has to do hand signals, yep. That's so weird too, because obviously, you know, steering wheel is on the other side in the UK, so the hand signals are opposite.
Yeah.
So it's like what, turning right you have the one that makes sense, and then turning left you have the one that is just like
the arm
I can't stick my arm out the other window, so I'm doing this instead. Imagine if that was like the rule or whatever. Is like you have to stick your arm out the other when, like, for example, in the UK, like you have to like reach out and lean out the left side.
Oh boy. Imagine how many accidents that would cause. For some reason, that reminds me of the dumb meme that's like how to drive through a roundabout, and it's just like approach roundabout, accelerate, drive over the middle of the roundabout.
I remember I read this like...
Hold on.
I read something like this about 10 years ago. I don't remember exactly what it was or where I read it, but it was like someone saying that they got pulled over by a cop, so they quickly jumped into the passenger seat and put their feet up on the steering wheel and pretended they were driving like that the entire time.
But why? Like, how does that help you?
It doesn't, but it's funny.
Ugh, all right. Well, so the episode begins with different number two, being like, hey, we should meet. And number 6 says, he basically says the mountain can come to Muhammad, which is a shortened form of the quote, if Muhammad won't go to the mountain, and the mountain, or sorry, the other way around, if the mountain will not come to Muhammad, then Muhammad must go to the mountain. But number 6 says that the mountain must come to Muhammad because he's not going to meet number 2. And then there's this witty dialogue when number 2 shows up and he's like, Muhammad, and number 6 is like, Everest, I presume. Because Everest is a mountain.
Thanks for clarifying.
Everest is also a name, so...
Yeah, gotta hand it to Patrick McGowan. You know, the writing quality is really a step above here. No, I don't know.
And then right here is when number 6 asks for the first time, at least airing order-wise, who is number 1?
I think number 2, if I remember correctly, just ignores this and goes, breakfast?
He does just ignore it. He's also wearing the same scarf that the first number 2 wore, and then the number 2 in... the second number 2 in...
Leo McKern number 2?
Yeah, the Leo McKern number 2. Was it Leo? Yeah, so the first number 2 in Arrival, and then the number 2 in Chimes of Big Ben, because there were 2 in Arrival.
Yeah.
So the first number 2 and I guess the third number 2. So this is the same scarf, but he's also wearing it completely differently to the other 2 number 2s. Mm-hmm. He's just wearing it draped around his neck. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other 2 number 2s wore it slung over either one shoulder or the other.
So they sit down and they start having their international breakfast. Number 6 tries to find out which country's like cuisine it is, and number 2 just responds, international. Kind of playing into the international, like, I don't know, vibe or just community right behind the village. We also meet number 58.
The maid.
The maid, right, who speaks...
Ostensibly.
Yeah, who speaks unintelligible... Not unintelligible, because the people in the episode understand, but it's a fake language. It's not... It was made up for the show. Well, I guess it's not even a real language unless they, like, fully built it out, like J.R.R. Tolkien or something.
Yeah, I read that it was just gibberish.
Yeah. Well, there is consistency, like, within the episode of, like, every time she and number 2 and 6 also do it as well, and they say the same phrase when they do the be seeing you thing, but in that language. So it's not just, like, random nonsense. There is a consistency between it. It just wasn't a fully, like... It's one, not a real language that's actually spoken, and 2, it's not... They didn't, like, actually fully build it out. But they did, at least.
Yeah, it's not a conlang.
Yeah.
Constructed language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number 2 reveals that elections are coming up soon, and they make their choice every 12 months. And I was like, wait, does that mean like every episode of the show is like 12 months apart? Or is number 2 just blatantly lying to number 6 right now?
I think the number 2s get fired, like, when they fail. That seems to, like, happen to some of them, I guess, I think.
But then who does number 1 unilaterally elect a new number 2 then? Or
I don't know. This episode is, as a whole, is probably one of the most... I know I used this word multiple times in the previous couple episodes, but it's the most Kafka-esque one of, like, what the hell is, like, going on here? And there's, especially the moment at the end when you find out, like, the truth behind number 58. There's, like, a scene, if I remember correctly, from The Trial, the book by Kafka, that is, like, very reminiscent of. But yeah, it's weird, because I don't think that this election process is ever brought up ever again.
Well, in Arrival, I remember them... I think it was Arrival. I remember them mentioning that they had elections in the village and that number 2 was an elected post. Or maybe that was in Chimes of Big Ben.
It was an Arrival. But the thing that was really stood out to me here that was weird was, like, number 6 asks who they're, like, what the election is for, and then number 2 goes, like, could like, it's as if he doesn't even know that it's for number 2. He's like, could even be for number 2 or something like that. He says something along, it's like the way he delivers that line is like he's not even sure who the election is for. And he says, my post, for example, and they walk outside, and then it's like, okay, it's for number 2. Or it's like, it's almost as if it's not even decided until they get to the balcony scene, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's not obvious. It wasn't obvious to me that he was running for the post of number 2 until 6 comes up with that campaign slogan, 6 for 2 and 2 for 6 or whatever.
Yeah, so it's almost as if they're just, like, doing an election for, like, they don't even know what until number 6 decides that it's for number 2, in a way. Never even thought of that before. Because that happens pretty much right now. They go outside, there's a little parade thing, and yeah,
for number 2. Vote number 2.
And they go to the I don't know what you would call it, the square.
Yeah, the town square where we saw what's his name just get eaten by Rover in Arrival.
Yeah. Number 6 declares that he wants to find out who the prisoners are and who the wardens are.
Right. What if he's the only prisoner, though?
Yeah, I mean, he has no way of knowing. What if everyone else is the prisoner and he's the warden?
Huh. Wouldn't that be a twist?
Yeah, that would be some Shutter Island, like, twist.
That would be Shutter. I know we talked about Shutter Island with Chimes of Big Ben, but that would be like the Shutter Island, the reverse Shutter Island.
Anyway, he decides that he's going to run.
Run, number 6, run.
Is that a Forrest Gump reference?
Yes.
Forrest
I've
Gump
never
is
seen
like...
Forrest Gump.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Well,
but I know the story, so.
Yeah. That's almost like the anti-prisoner. Like, everything in this universe is so bleak and, like, depressing. In the Forrest Gump, there's, like, always that glimmer of hope, you know?
I'm kind of shocked we haven't talked about Truman Show more on this podcast, since that's, like, very similar to The Prisoner in some ways.
Yeah, I haven't never even made that connection the other two times I watched this show, but like, yeah, kind of is done with like a greater comedy angle, obviously, but
And also more of an emphasis on. I think The Prisoner focuses on the idea between individualism and collectivism, whereas The Truman Show focuses on the like television reality aspect of everything instead
of life itself.
So number 2 gives a little stump speech at the town square. He talks about how number 6 is going to run, and number 6 is like, "That's me. I'm running. Go me. Whoopee." And number 6 basically starts to promise freedom for people if he gets elected, and so people start voting for him.
Right. Even though it seems that nobody in the village really even cares about freedom whatsoever, other than him. But I guess that's all just part of the ruse. Yeah, it seems like the next part is taking place the next day, where number 58 is assigned to be number 6's like assistant or whatever.
Campaign assistant.
Yeah.
There's like indications in this episode that number 6 has some, shall we say, problems with woman.
Yeah, another sort of meta thing too, because, you know, Patrick McGowan had some qualms about, like, well, portraying romance in the show, for one, or anything even remotely sexual. But, yeah, perhaps related there.
Yeah, but there's also, like, number 2 has this subtle line where he seems to indicate that number 6 may or may not be either a misogynist or just a misandrist. Or not a misanthrope, because he says specifically they chose number 58 because she doesn't speak English that number 6 does, and that was important given his like predilections, or he says something like that.
Huh, yeah, I didn't pick up on that.
Like he seems to know how number 6 is going to treat her, and so they assigned her someone who didn't speak English, so she wouldn't understand.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're yelling in someone's face, it doesn't matter what language like you're speaking. You kind of get that they're like mad at you or whatever, at least.
Yeah, but at the same time, like if you don't speak English and I call you like a name, you wouldn't necessarily understand the power behind that, right? Like if I called you like a bastard and you don't speak English, you wouldn't know what that means. And I guess that's kind of the point here. Is if number 6 just started dropping the C word or something, F-bombs. Like dropping F-bombs and I don't know, derogative names that she wouldn't understand. I mean, you would understand, like if he's yelling, like I agree, you would understand the emotion behind it, but you wouldn't understand the meaning behind the words.
Yeah. I mean, I'm mostly playing devil's advocate. There's definitely like there's like, as we continue to watch the show, I think it's going to come out more, but there's definitely like an underlying misogyny to number 6's character, and even to this show as a whole, I would say. Like, yeah. Which
is interesting because like in this episode, I guess like the incoming number 2 is a woman who's like, she kind of scores the real first big sort of victory breaking number 2. I'm kind of assuming this whole thing is her plan because it seems like it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
So, like, none of the other number 2s so far have had nearly this much success in, like, breaking number 6 down and revealing to him that Leo McKern's number 2 was also up there with the whole, like, he got so far as to escape, but he's actually still in the village. And this one is like, even you can't even escape in your mind. Like, we can control your mind.
Yeah, I'd say Leo McKern's number 2 almost or got closest to actually like revealing why number 6 resigned, but this number 2,
Rachel Herbert,
right? Rachel Herbert's number 2 is most effective in like, yeah, I guess just breaking number 6's mind, just screwing with him.
But it is interesting that you talk about the misogynistic quality of the whole show, because I had kind of started to notice that because they always seem to use women to like seduce number 6 and then just discard them come next episode. They're like, what? Remember number 9? Forget her.
Me neither. No, I'm just kidding.
And like, I wouldn't be surprised if next week we have a completely different number 2 and Rachel Herbert's number 2 is never mentioned again. Like,
Yeah, that is the case. Never see her again.
so
Yeah, there are other female number 2s. Yeah, I'll just say that.
well, curious to see how that goes. I do want to mention here, so they have these little campaign badges that seem to kind of indicate who they're going to vote for. Number 2's wearing his since the start of the episode. It's like a county fair badge. It's white and it has a 2 in the middle, and a black 2. And number 6's is the same design, but it's black with a white number 6 in the middle. And I find it interesting that everybody in the village who's voting for that candidate, including number 2's, who's got his own campaign badge, wears it on their right lapel, but number 6 wears his campaign badge on the left lapel, where he would wear his number badge if he wore it.
Wow, what a rebel. Really sticking to the system.
It's kind of a subtle nod to the fact that they're breaking his mind, because when he's in control, he refuses to wear his identifying number badge, right? Like, he doesn't wear his penny farthing number 6, at least so far. He does briefly put it on in Arrival, but I think it were Chimes of Big Ben. But when he has his campaign badge, he doesn't even act as if he's wearing that badge. He puts the campaign badge like where his identifying number would be, so it kind of serves as his identifying number badge.
Right.
So the prisoner, in true science fiction fashion, predicts FaceTime, because number 2 is just on number 6's television screen while he's phoning him, and number 6 is talking to him on the phone while they're on the TV. It's like janky early 60s sci-fi visioning of video calls, but video calls are science fiction in the 60s nonetheless. So
yeah, and there's really there's no way you can go wrong with that concept, right? Like, a video call as it was envisioned way back then is basically what they are now. Obviously, They didn't know about the internet and stuff like that.
Obviously, they didn't know you wouldn't have to hold the telephone receiver up to your face while you were talking on the screen, but
yeah, but like, the concept is pretty like universally not difficult to wrap your mind around, and you know, if you're predicting it, it's basically what it is like in real life.
Yep.
So number 2 and number 58 start driving around the village on like a little...
You mean number 6?
Yeah, number 6 and number 58 start driving around on like a little village cart or whatever. And number 113 and 113B jump on.
Yeah, so this numbering scheme is what kind of proposed the theory to me that maybe the numbers are assigned to jobs and not necessarily to specific people, because why would there be a 113B?
Yeah, makes sense, especially with the whole, like, I'm the new number 2 thing.
Yeah. Because then number 2 does seem to represent that position more than any one person. So I find it plausible that the other numbers are similar.
Yeah, and then again, like, begs the question, like, what the hell is number 6's role then? Is he just, like, the person who's there to delude everyone else into thinking that there might actually be freedom and that they submitted of their own free will?
Right, the upstart sailor.
Yeah, exactly.
So to speak.
That's actually a really scary thought of, like, the ruse goes so deep that they, like, need someone, or that they have someone there who unknowingly themselves tries to break free just to delude everyone else into thinking that they're not doing that of their own free will.
Yeah, it's very much like the Matrix when they specifically introduced descent into the utopia because humanity wouldn't accept it as a utopia straight up. Like, there had to be that element of grunginess and dilapidation, but not a straight dystopia. Which is
why they picked 1999, the peak of human civilization.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same idea, like the people of the village wouldn't accept the village if there wasn't someone trying to escape every week, basically.
Right.
And that role is fulfilled by number 6.
Right.
Very interesting. So there's this humorous kind of skit in the cart where they're like, so, number 6, what are your campaign promises? And he's like, no comment. And they're like, I will expand the freedom of the village. Okay, so what about, what are you going to do about number 2? And he's like, no comment. And they're like, so he's going to replace his position. Like, they keep drawing out long answers out of no comment.
Right.
Which is, like, classic slapstick comedy right there.
And when he finally does give an answer, I forget what he says, but it's not a very long one. And when he does that, they write down no comment.
And then we see him get off the cart because he's in this cart because he's going to the final council meeting of the current number 2, and whether or not he gets reelected, then he'll have more, or number 6 will run the council, I guess. I don't know if this council ever comes back, but it's kind of a weird thing to just throw in here out of nowhere. But he sees this newspaper that immediately prints the like article that the guy was writing on the cart, and some people have freeze framed the screen and like transcribed the article, and apparently it's like mostly just a mishmash of sentences from elsewhere, like in the script. Like, it doesn't apparently make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the thing of like when they were making this show, they had no idea that, one, people would be obsessed with it enough to actually do that, and two, that like being able to pause TV would be a capability that people would have, you know?
But yeah, so one of the websites I found like has the transcription of this article, so I'll put it in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's there's like nothing super interesting about it. It's just like, for example, I have every confidence in my chances, number 6 told the reporter. I admire number 2 as a man, and I pay tribute to his achievements, but the time has come for a change. Number 6 insisted that it would be a hard fight, but a clean one.
Yeah, it's so basically just forth. A dry recounting of what happened already.
Yeah. Although the final line may be interesting, is number 6 said he entered the contest with enthusiasm for a system which gave the ordinary citizen the right to run for higher office. And that's how we got Donald Trump. Anyway.
The Prisoner is actually the story of leading up to the 2016 election. That's why it's so like held in high regard now.
Great.
Anyway, no.
So they go to the council room. Number 2's council room looks, now that Keith has pointed out that almost every interior set is a redress of the command room set, I immediately, as soon as he went into this council room, was like, a redress of the command room set. Again,
they hide it well, though, because of the big staircase that number 6 walks down to get into this room. So it doesn't look like, you know, number 2's room or the surveillance room or whatever. It definitely has that underground lair look to it.
Number 2 is surrounded by the council that has it's number 2A through like I think it's either 2I or 2J. I couldn't tell. These council members don't speak. Number 6 calls them mannequins. And then, like, in the trippiest sequence of the show so far, he gets dropped through a trap door into I don't even know.
He starts questioning. Like, right before that, he starts questioning, like, he says something along the lines of, like, why not just torture the information out of me? Why are you going through, like, a sham election, faking a democracy, faking this society, faking everything in this society that you've created to draw information out of people? Why not just, like, capture them and torture them?
And they're like, now.
Yeah, so we're kind of getting hints at, like, it's not even necessarily, like, yeah, I guess number 6 thinks what they're doing is bad, but I think to him, it's, like, it's even worse that they're like, obfuscating and, like, I don't know, just faking what they're doing. Like, I guess to him it would be a little better if they just were like, yeah, we need this information, so we're going to, you know, torture it out of you. But instead, they're, you know, trying to hide what they're actually doing, I guess. But yeah, then he gets dropped down the trapdoor into the office of the labor exchange manager, who tells him that honesty is the best policy. and then proceeds to torture him, just like he asked for.
Except notably, he never asks him during this torture, like, he never asks him why he resigned.
Right.
So it's less torture and more like proof that they've broken him. Haha, we got you, number 6.
Yeah, so this is done via like a display with a square and a circle on it, and none of the 3 times that I've watched this show have I like really grasped what is going on here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, as my first watch through, did not grasp what is going on here.
But somehow this is the beginning of the brainwashing. And what's interesting is that it seems like they administer the drug or whatever they're using to brainwash him via different methods. So it's like it's everywhere. It's it encompasses multiple different aspects of like things he might do, of like he takes it via drinking it later on, and here they not ingest it, they administer it like via like something that's not even real, via like a display on what looks like an overhead projector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a square and a circle moving slowly towards him.
Yeah, but I'm not wrong in thinking that this is where he starts being brainwashed, right? Or is it?
I think this is where it starts. Yeah, because before this, he kind of seems... Before this, we don't ever see any sort of scene of him being brainwashed, and also he seems to be acting of his own free will before this moment, so...
Right. Oh, also we get the information that he gave up sugar on medical advice.
Yeah, which just corroborates what we heard in Arrival, that he doesn't take sugar in his tea, I mean.
Yeah, strangely, number 2 didn't seem to know that. But now they have the information, so maybe they've gathered even more information about him.
There's also the curious discrepancy where number 6 seems surprised that number 26, this guy in the basement, knows that he doesn't take sugar in his tea, even though he like had told number 2, or that number 2 knew in Arrival. So like it's clearly in his file that people can read. But anyway.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on there. That's the thing with this show, is like it could either just be like a weird mistake or like some deeper thing, or perhaps both at the same time, you know?
Or perhaps it's just more proof for my theory that every episode of The Prisoner is a reset of the entire simulation.
Maybe, yeah.
Just tear down that continuity between number 6's character from episode to episode. Screw that.
Did you notice how dramatic of a roll Patrick McGoohan does when he rolls into 26's office?
Yes. There are a lot of funny things I noticed in this episode. My particular favorite is the group of 4 people worshipping a rover later on in the background of a shot.
Yeah, I want to touch on that when we get there. Honestly, I don't really have too much knowledge or background on this, but like one of the only like people who like have created movies or TV shows that they like write, direct, and act in, like of like Spike Lee is one of the only that I can think of that doesn't like overdo what he does, you know?
That's kind of hilarious because I saw a post on Reddit the other day. It was like, just watch The Five Bloods, which is his new movie, and was like, man, Spike Lee's not subtle at all. And everyone in the comments was like, yeah, you never noticed Spike Lee's like the least subtle movie maker of our time.
I mean, he's not subtle, but like he doesn't. I don't know. I feel like there's an indulgent quality. I know it's just a stupid role and it lasts for 2 seconds, but I feel like there's some sort of indulgent quality to him, like dramatically tripping over and rolling. Whereas, like if you watch Do the Right Thing, for example, Spike Lee is like, it's an ensemble cast, but he's basically the main character in the movie, and he just plays it like a normal character. Like he doesn't. I don't know. I don't feel that there's any like indulgence on his part.
I mean, there's definitely a bit of egomania on Patrick McGoohan's part.
Oh, yeah.
In this show.
It's a bit of an understatement. There's quite a lot of egomania, actually, I think. Especially in episode.
So
just wait till we get to. Oh God, I'm not even going to say it. But just wait. We haven't seen even half of it yet.
So number 26 does some magic stuff to number 6, and number 6
Wait, he decides to steal a boat, doesn't he?
steals a boat and tries to escape, because that worked so well the last time he did that.
The last couple times he tried to just run away.
Depending on what order this is all taking place in, even still, that worked so well the last time he tried to escape. And he gets somewhat far out, and then immediately just like the boat, the control wheel just shuts down, and he's like, ah, damn. And then he gets swarmed by like 4 rovers, which I did read actually production wise that they had like many copies of the rover prop, because it's basically just a balloon, because apparently it was prone to popping at inopportune times. So they had a ton of backups.
Yeah. Good on them, unlike, in Blake 7 when they just like ran out of teleport bracelets.
Because they kept vanishing. And then they had to make crappy knockoffs from the TV. I seem to remember them. They like being that TV specials, like how to make a Zen teleport bracelet at home, and then like the production crew used that to make their own replacement props because they didn't have any more.
Yeah, it was on Blue Peter. They had like a little segment about how to make one. Wasn't that just a rumor though that they watched?
Yeah, I think it was just a rumor. I think you're right.
Yeah. Anyway, they start brainwashing him in a different way now. Number 6 is just like asleep in his bed, and a lamp comes down over his head, which presumably is part of the brainwashing process.
And then he wakes up and gets to work.
He starts campaigning, and I don't know about you, but Patrick McGoohan kind of sounds like a Dalek when he's when he speaks. Like, that he kind of has that way of speaking, of like
that very flat intonation with weird gaps.
Yeah, the sort of chubbiness to it. And when he's speaking through the microphone, it sounds a little metallic, so he kind of sounds like a Dalek.
The Prisoner Doctor Who crossover when.
But then there's a scene now that, they're in some sort of restaurant or something. Everyone's having a good time. And not Patrick McGoohan, number 6 is...
Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Is drunk. But it's like all in his head, or he's not actually drunk. He's not actually drunk. There's no alcohol in the village.
Yeah.
But he's acting as if he's drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So number 58, after snapping at number 58 and a couple other people, number 58 takes him to a little speakeasy located in like a cave.
There's only really like 2 guys in the speakeasy though.
Right. He's credited as he has a weird name in the
credits. There's a credit for Man in Cave.
Yeah, that's it. Man in Cave, who's sort of in charge of brewing whatever it is they're brewing. And
alcohol?
It's something alcoholic. Probably, possibly, I guess. And then the other guy in the cave is number 2. Kind of funny, like, for a minute before you realize what's actually happening. Because, like, the guy uncovers his face and it's like, oh, number 2 is, like, out here getting drunk in the cave because he's losing the election.
Except that's probably all just part of the plan.
Well, it for sure is, because they start drinking and they start discussing, the election and such. And then number 6 just passes out, and number 2 immediately breaks the facade where he goes, the other guy goes like, are you sure that wasn't enough? Or is like, are you sure we're administering the correct doses? And number 6 is like, God, number 2 is like, yeah, we are.
It's even better because in this episode there's a number 26, which is 2 and a 6.
Well, I think the next thing that happens is that they actually hold the election.
Yeah. So it cuts to the like back to the, not to the council room, but to the like foyer of the council building. and people cast their votes by putting their little campaign badges into the corresponding box, and it's hilarious because there's only like one in number two's box or two, and then like number six's box is just overflowing with campaign badges.
Right. Number six, God, number two decides to just nope out of it because he knows he's already lost. So he's just like, all right, later.
He says, I haven't cast my vote yet. And he takes his number two campaign badge off and pins it to number six on his left lapel where he would wear his identifying badge. And introduces him to the crowd as number two. Does that mean Patrick McGoohan technically plays number two for all of like 2 minutes?
I guess, yeah. It also touches back to what he said on before, is he wants to figure out who the prisoners are and who the wardens are. But by the end of the episode, I think this is just one of the many hints that we're about to get that like he really can't tell because he's just been essentially crowned like King Warden.
King Warden.
Or he's been voted in as like the leader of the like nefarious scheme that's going on here, or at least the enforcer of it.
Yeah, King Warden.
Yeah. Exactly.
So he gets taken to the control room that we see number two in every week, and there's just like a penny farthing bicycle, like just they open the door to a room, and then that room just has like just a penny farthing, and that's like the only thing in that room.
I don't remember this actually.
So,
huh.
It's really interesting because the first thing they do when they get to the Green Dome is they open one of these doors. I actually think this is the control room, but maybe it's a different room. I'm having trouble remembering specifically. I didn't make a note. But they open, and number 56 gets really excited because there's a penny farthing in the room, and she runs in, and then she starts pushing the button, so it must be the same room. But yeah, when they open the door, there's a very obvious penny farthing bicycle framed center frame in the doorway, through the doorway in the room, I should say.
Huh. Yeah, interesting. I have my own theories. Like, that's obviously a big symbol for the show. I have my own theories as to what it all means, but other people have theirs as well. So maybe we can, as the show goes on, or maybe when in the final episode or whatever, we can kind of go into some of the fan theories and such.
Turns out it means nothing. The biggest twist of them all. Man, wouldn't it be hilarious if Patrick McGoohan, on like his deathbed, someone comes over and is like, what does the prisoner mean? And he just leans over and he's like, it means nothing. I just made it because it would be funny to watch people write all these fan theories.
Well, like, even if he
and
says...
then he dies.
Oh my God. Shitty last words. But, like, even if it doesn't mean anything to... Like, it obviously means something. Even if he says that, this show obviously means a lot of things to a lot of different people. You know?
Oh, no. Yeah, of course. I just think it would be hilarious if, like, Patrick McGoohan's motivation for making it was, like, I just thought it would be funny. Obviously, once he puts it out into the world, it kind of leaves his hands on whether or not it means anything, I guess. But...
yeah. And that's the thing, too. Even if you make something with the idea that, like, haha, this means nothing or whatever, even if you have that, like, nihilistic, you know, agenda, like, even that has a meaning behind it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, it's not even necessarily that it means nothing. It's just that he thought it would be funny, and that's what it means, is that it would be funny to do. Like, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would actually be funny. But, you know, surprisingly, Noel Gallagher of Oasis fame had a good... Well, he had a good, like... I don't know, I think take on this, surprisingly, actually having a good take for once, but whatever. Some interviewer asked him, like, you know, so... what he thought about how Oasis fans like had a lot of appreciation for like what they thought were the deep meanings of the lyrics and stuff, and then, you know, Oasis would come out and be like, yeah, we just created these lyrics in like 2 minutes and they don't really have any meaning, like deep meaning. They don't really have any like big meaning. It's just like we saw a dog and we wrote this song, or like we saw this guy like walking in a funny way and we wrote a song about it. But Noel Gallagher's response was like, you know, if people have found like their own meanings in these lyrics and really connected with them, then like, even though we didn't really have that behind our writings of the songs, then, you know, I think that's a good thing. Or like, you can't really take that away from people. because they'll just think what they think, I guess.
Yeah, that is a good take, surprisingly. I've seen a lot of musical artists actually have similar beliefs that they're like, well, I designed it to mean this, but if you got X, Y, and Z out of it, then hey, more power to you. Except when you use like when what is it? Bruce Springsteen was like, my song "Born in the USA" was like an anti-war song, so it's like pretty weird that you're using it for your like MAGA rally. So like, also pretty sure you didn't buy the rights to use that song for me. So like, that's not like, yeah,
yeah. I guess there is a dark side to that that take as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely a dark side to that. Like, Born in the USA is like seen as such a patriotic song, but when Bruce Springsteen wrote it, he wrote it as like a critique of that exact patriotism and how it led to like so much war, like the Vietnam War. And now it's become like, yeah, I don't know. That's the history behind that song is interesting, and we don't have to get into that now.
Yeah, wow. Anyway, they start pressing the buttons randomly, and number 58 begins to slap the brainwashing out of number 6.
This was hilarious. I was like, oh, he's just getting beat on by like the person he thought was his one ally in this campaign just turns on him and starts beating him up. And I was like, more power to it, because he does kind of deserve it based on the way he treated her.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but every single time, including this one that I've watched this episode, like a chill has run down, like because she's kind of breaking the facade already. Not totally, but like when you cut back to number 58 and her face is like just looks totally serious and totally dead, like that shot, like just sends a chill down my spine every single time.
And then she has the most ominous quote of the show so far, where she goes, "This is only the beginning. We have many ways and means, but we don't wish to damage you permanently."
Right, and they take him away. There's a little fight sequence in here where he tries...
Take him away, toys.
They try and... Oh my god. They try and... or number 6 tries to escape, but he sees the people, like, watching Rover or whatever. And there's a little fight, but he can't escape. There's also the moment where, like, as they're erratically pressing the buttons, he kind of snaps out of it, and he goes, like... You're free, like escape, obey me and be free is his exact line, which is...
Yeah, I wrote that down because it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of contradictory, right? He wants them to be free, but only under his orders or what's going to set them free, because without the population of the village obeying him, they're just going to remain prisoners.
Except it like they're not even prisoners. Like, it kind of shows the fact that number 6 and number 2, number 1, whatever, the village themselves are not even that different, because they're imposing a certain set of beliefs on the people. They just happen to be contradictory beliefs. Number 6 wants to impose the idea on the people of the village that they should leave, whereas whoever controls the village is imposing this idea that, like, number 6 should want to be happy there. And, like, even though number 6 thinks that, like, being free is what people would want, he is still imposing that idea on the population.
Right. Kind of goes back to what number 6 and 2 talked about in Chimes of Big Ben, of, like, East and West. What's really the difference, right? Is they're both after the same thing, which is control.
Yep.
And I think at the time you're like, oh, number 6 is like clued into that, but like maybe not, unless it comes after chronologically. But you can go down an entire rabbit hole.
Well, it's also hard to like recognize those kind of things in yourself, right? Like, it's hard to be introspective like that.
Yeah, true. But I really love the moment when number 58 breaks the facade and takes the number 2 badge. That just, again, sends a chill down my spine every time I see it.
Yeah, my notes are like, oh shit, she's number 2.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah, this is a great reveal, I think. I don't know if you noticed, but number 6 has like abs of steel. Like, when they're punching him in the stomach, he like makes absolute, like, he doesn't flinch whatsoever.
Yeah, thought it was pretty hilarious. Also reminded me of of a scene in the Eurovision movie that I watched the same day I watched this, which is why it was fresh in my mind, where the main character goes to punch someone and the guy just laughs and he's like, "Why are you laughing?" He's like, "You punch me, but it tickles." And so I was like, when I saw them just wailing on number 6 and he was just having like no reaction, I just thought of that scene.
Yeah, so that's Free for All. Oh.
Yeah, so I want to ask you this question because I'm not really sure, but like the way I interpreted it was that the number 2 we saw in this episode was like not actually. So the way I interpreted the sequence of events and what I discovered was not the way that pretty much everyone else interpreted this, was that this number 58, Rachel Herbert, was number 2 the whole story and was just undercover, and the number 2 that number 6 was interacting with was just a
fake out,
a fake, basically. And I don't know, that seemed obvious to me because he doesn't really seem to exert as much power over the village as previous number 2s. He doesn't really seem to know as much, just given the way he like talks with number 6 and the dejected way he acts when people are not supporting him or rallying behind him, or the fact that people just in general don't even rally behind him. Maybe they know that he's not number 2. But what I read was that most people interpreted this to mean that he was number 2, and that after the election, it wasn't actually an election for number 6. It was an election for number 58, and she becomes the next number 2.
Yeah, I always had your interpretation of it. And there are a couple of blogs that I'm now following that, wrote about the Prisoner however many years ago. But I'm reading their write-ups as we watch these episodes, and all the ones that I read for this week had that interpretation you had. And that's always been my interpretation ever since I first watched it, was that this was the plan all along. I think either interpretation does its job of kind of making you think what the episode wants you to, what I guess the episode wants you to think of, like the election is a sham, because either way it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I honestly thought that the interpretation you had and that I have always had was the more popular, but I guess not.
I mean, if you've probably looked at more blogs than me, because I'm still wary of spoilers.
Or only read through 4 for this week, and they all had, they either didn't address it, or I think 2 of them didn't address it, and 2 of them had the interpretation that we had.
Yeah, the summary on Wikipedia refers to Rachel Herbert's character as the incoming number 2, and then the other guy's Eric Portman, is the previous number 2. So.
Yeah, I noticed that's how Wikipedia, not the Prisoner Wiki, but Wikipedia credited the characters as well, of incumbent number 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the episode credits actually don't say that. They just, yeah. So that's a little misleading there, I think.
Yeah, well. So I also made a note that I thought it was interesting. We see a couple more black inverted badges in this story. The most obvious one is number 255, who brings the drinks to number 6 in the restaurant. And I don't really have any theory as to why some of the badges are negative inverted yet. I guess I'll have to see if that's... I don't know if that ever becomes a major thing or not. Maybe you have more information on that.
I don't. I didn't even notice it until this watch through. Yeah. Which I guess me just saying that is a spoiler, because this could be a big thing that comes up later on, but I guess I've just spoiled that it's not.
Or it's just not something you were paying attention to. I find the choice of numbers and everything very interesting, and perhaps you didn't, which is why I guess I focus on it more.
Yeah.
We get a lot of numbers in this episode. 58, obviously, and 54, and 113 and 113B, 26. In 6's procession, we see a 66, 105, and 262. 255 brings the drinks. There's a number 16 in number 6's band, as well as a 73 and a 64. Mm-hmm. And like I said, this is the second number 54 we've had, because the first number 54 is the general playing chess with number 6 in Chimes of Big Ben.
Right. There's also, speaking of things doubling up, there's also like the double meaning to the title of this episode. Free for all is in like something that's free for everyone versus like free for all like a melee.
It's also how like number 6 devises his campaign slogan, because he says free for all for free, half a dozen for you, 6 for him, 6 for 2, 2 for 6.
Right. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah, 6 of one.
I guess that's where the name of the Prisoner Appreciation Society, 6 of one, comes from.
Oh yeah, that would make sense.
But just goes to show you that like they're two sides of the same coin, right? It's even baked into his campaign slogan, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And there's also that line of like, I forget exactly what it is, but number 2 is like, if I'm elected, I'll let you have fall, winter, spring, and summer. And number 6 goes like, well, I'll let you have fall, winter, summer, and spring. Which is kind of funny, but kind of also ties back into that sort of idea. There's one thing I wanted to talk about here that ties back into the scene where it's all the different, it's like the council of number 2s or whatever, and number 6 starts spinning around.
It's the council of 2.
Well, again, it's kind of like what I was talking about before, of like, it seems that number 6 doesn't even really think that the most sinister thing that's going on here is the fact that, like, is what they're doing. It seems like he thinks what's even more sinister than that is the fact that they're putting up this facade and trying to play off what they're doing as, like, for the best, you know? So this episode, in a way, kind of mirrors that. Like, what's actually scary here is not what they're doing, but it's the obfuscation, like, the dishonesty behind it. So in a way, this episode is like its own horror thesis, right? When the facade behind number 58 comes down, like, that's such a chilling moment to me. And the reason why that was scary is that, like, you know, it's she had been putting up that fake front for the entire time, and when she speaks English, like, that's the most frightening part for me, at least.
Yeah. She understood what number 6 was saying the whole story. Right.
There's
very interesting.
There's an element to this show. I wanted to bring this up in later episodes because I feel it's more relevant later, but I'll just touch on it now, and we don't have to get too deep into this. But there's an element to this show of, like, there's like a way of telling the story, like in Western/European /English literature, of, like, you know, a 4-act structure where you have, and everyone, like, knows this, you learn it, like, in school or whatever, but, like, you know, you have your introduction and your build up and your climax and resolution. But, like, there's a, and I don't even know, I know the word, but I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm not gonna even try. But, like, there's an East Asian, like, not alternative, but, like, analog to that, and some ancient Greek dudes also talked about this as well in almost exactly the same way. But, like, it's very similar, but instead of introduction, resolution, climax, God, I messed that up. But instead of introduction, build up, climax, resolution, it's like introduction, build up, like, and like twist, resolution, where the twist is something that makes you totally reframe the first 2 steps, or like that completely recontextualizes the first 2 steps. And in a way, and in a way, this episode kind of has that, where it's like, it's not only the climax, it's a total recontextualization, where you find out that she had actually been understanding the entire time. Oh, that's not a good example of it, because it's not like it doesn't really fully recontextualize everything. It's just a single part. But there are later episodes, I think, of this show, especially the very ending, that, like, kind of have that structure to them.
So, like, how the ending of Arrival recontextualizes, like, all the scenes. I'm about to possibly spoil Arrival for anyone who wants to watch it. I don't... But, well, okay, I'll try to keep it spoiler-free, but the ending of Arrival, like, throughout the movie you've been seeing all these flashbacks, and the ending of Arrival completely recontextualizes, like, the lens through which you view those flashbacks, I'll say.
I guess, yeah. I mean, even I don't understand this to, like, a big extent. I don't know. It's kind of difficult for me, at least, to wrap my mind around. But, like, yeah. It's like, maybe Shutter Island even is a good example of, like, it's not only the it's not like the climax is not only just like it's not only the climax of what this has all been leading up to, but it makes you see what you had already seen in a totally different light. Contrast that with like, I don't know, an example, like for example, Romeo and Tybalt fight in Romeo and Juliet. That's like a climax to that story, but like it's not a recontext, or like even Romeo and Juliet commit suicide, or like they think each other are dead and they kill themselves. That's a climax, but it doesn't, like, it was all leading up to that, it doesn't really make you see the previous stuff in a different light.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's a good way to kind of keep track of the difference between the two. But like, yeah, this is talked about, I think, by the ancient Greeks as well, but there's like an East Asian, word or whatever that I'll put in the show notes for it. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. But hey, I think this show is going to kind of have some of that.
Huh. Well, I'll keep my eye open. I was going to say I'll keep my eye out, but I like my eye in.
Did you notice the like third eye-esque symbol on number 2's seat in the?
I did not.
Yeah, so right before number 6 starts like spinning around, it's where the number 2 is like in the middle of all the other number 2's. It's like it has the pyramid shape, and then it has like the little eye on the top, and it's glowing.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Whack. That symbol, for any British people listening to this, that symbol is on like American money. It's on the $1 bill. It's an Egyptian pyramid with the top off, like the top is detached, and there's an eye on it, which is like.
It's typically associated with the Illuminati.
Yeah.
In many conspiracy circles.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Zoinks. Anyway. What's order do we do these segments in?
I don't think we really have an order, so let's establish one right now. And I think who is number 1. We usually do the Britain's 10 Actors thing last.
Yes.
So let's go with who is number one. Yeah. I think we both have the same one.
58?
Yeah, 58. If there's one person who's in charge in this episode, it's her.
During the episode, I thought it was going to be 26, the guy in the basement, because he seemed super knowledgeable. But then the freaking reveal at the end that number 58 was number 2 actually was like, yep.
Yeah. I actually wanted to introduce a new segment here based on what we were talking about with Keith last time. And also, full disclosure, one of the blogs that I've been following does this as well. So kind of, taking it from them as well. But I want to do like a win or lose thing. Like, is this a win, loss, or maybe neither for number 6?
Well, this is a loss.
Yeah, this one is a definite loss. One of his most major, I think, in the entire show.
I wouldn't be able to comment on that, but I'm just going to believe you.
Right. Yeah,
it is a major loss. He loses morale. Sorry. I was going to say morality, but that didn't make sense. He loses morale. His mind gets broken. He gets mind controlled by the village in a much more successful way than in A, B, and C. And they're basically like, ha, gotcha.
And honestly, the biggest slap in the face at the end is that they don't even ask him why he resigned. They're just like, this is what we can do. And
yeah, it's such a show of force that like their point is almost to break him through by showing their sheer force and then going, we didn't even need to ask you why you resigned to break you.
Right.
So.
Well, I actually have a quote this week.
I had one too, but we said it was the mountain must come to Muhammad one, and yeah. I already said it, so.
Yeah. Mine's from that exact same scene. Number 2, when they're eating breakfast, number 2 asks him, are you going to run? And number 6 says, like blazes, the first chance I get. So I thought that was funny.
Actually, there is one quote I wanted to point out that I didn't write down, but it's been stuck in my mind the whole time, where they're standing on, I don't remember exactly where it appears because I didn't write it down, but they're standing there and number 6 is talking about what he wants to do for his campaign but it's kind of coded language. It sounds like he's really talking about like what he wants to do for the village. And number 2 goes, well, you are in charge, number 6. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the way that number 2 delivered it was just like, this sounds also like coded language. But anyway, since so much of number 6 and number 2's interaction in this episode was through metaphor and coded dialogue, just seemed weird.
Yeah, now that you bring that up, even the "Are you going to run like blazes" thing is actually like, it's not metaphor. It's like there's some literary. It's some literary like or some rhetorical, I don't know, devices being used there. I forget what the name of it is, but I'll put show notes where like he's saying, "Are you going to run?" as in run in the election, and number 6 uses the other meaning of run, which is like run away.
Yeah, you talk about one thing, but you're actually talking about another. Kind of like how that song in Grease 2 is about ostensibly bowling, but it's actually about having sex.
Yeah, well, that's like more straightforward metaphor. The one I'm thinking of, and I can't believe I forgot the term, but like the example that they use to teach this is like he took his hat and his leave, where like take has 2 different meanings there, and you're using them at the same time. I don't know, I forget what that's called, because I forgot everything I learned in school, but hey, whatever. Anyway, I guess all we have left is how many of Britain's 10 actors are in this episode.
Yep.
So why don't you take it away to start off with?
Oh, wait. Gotta scroll through my notes. Well, I have Eric Portman as my first actor. He plays number 2. He plays Culpepper in an adaptation of the Canterbury Tales. He's in the TV show Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and then I have him as ITV Sunday Night Theater, and then not really like much else that I noted.
I think he was more a movie actor because of his age, and TV wasn't like really a thing until like the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe perhaps a stage actor as well.
So that's what I've got for Eric Portman, not to be confused with Eric Porter, other noted British famous actor.
Or Eric Cartman,
also
the South Park character. I read on one of the blogs that I was reading said that he was one of the most famous British actors at the time, and that audiences would have recognized him.
I don't doubt it. I mean, he's got an extensive like Wikipedia page.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he is actor of the week who dies suspiciously close to the airing of the episode.
Yep.
Because he dies in 1969, so not more than 2 years after this episode would have aired.
Mm-hmm. Next up, with Rachel Herbert as number 58. She was in Danger Man. She was in something called The Power Game, Witch Hunt, Spindo. These are just big roles for her. I don't really know what these are, but they look big. Spindo, the word spin, and then DOE as one word. She was in Callan.
Yeah.
She was in Clouds of Witness, Murder Must Advertise, or something like that. I didn't really write. I write my notes in my phone, so like half the words are misspelled.
So my next actor is Harold Behrens, who plays the reporter, but I think he's credited as photographer. He was in Trail of the Pink Panther, which is the third or the second Pink Panther movie, I want to say. I think it's the third because the second is Return of the Pink Panther. He was in The Avengers, Z-Cars, a TV show called The Invisible Man, Are You Being Served, and that was about it.
He also plays another role in The Prisoner.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, he was the boxing MC in the episode The Girl Who Was Death.
Not there yet for me, so I wouldn't know.
I think he was credited as reporter because there's another person credited as photographer, I think. Dean Cooper?
Yeah, Dean Cooper is credited as photographer. Maybe their names were next to each other and I wrote it down wrong.
So if I'm correct here, these are 113 and 113B, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. Harold Behrens was reporter. Yeah, this is 113 and 113B.
Yeah. Well, Dean Cooper, the photographer, aka 113B, this is his only credit.
Nice. Dean getting in and getting out.
Hell yeah.
In and out. Then we have John Casabon. Mm-hmm. John Casabon. as Man in Cave. He also has another role in The Prisoner, actually.
Yeah.
But I didn't write down what it was
the,
because I don't know if it's spoilers or not. So I was like, just saw that he had 2 credits, and I was like, okay, he's got 2 credits.
Well, if the fact that he plays the Umbrella Man in Once Upon a Time is a spoiler, then you've just been spoiled.
Ah, shoot. Oh, man. He's also in Quatermass 2, The Avengers, Vanity Fair, Zed Cars. That was like most of the big stuff I noticed.
He was in Danger Man.
He was in The Saint as well, sorry.
Yeah, he was in Danger Man.
And Adamant Lives.
I had him as being in something called Time Slip, which I just clicked on the IMDb description, which if you have read any IMDb descriptions, you know that they're not very descriptive. But apparently Time Slip is kind of like a 70s Bill and Ted.
I see this. Simon and Liz were teenage friends who fell into a time hole.
Yeah.
You just got time holed.
You just got time flighted.
It also, wow, the like cover of the complete series is like the worst picture of the female and male leads they could have possibly chosen.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, add that to the list of things we might watch for Inevitable. It's only 26 episodes.
Yeah, why not?
The female lead was in nothing else of note.
Anyway, moving on here, I have George Benson playing the labor exchange manager. He was in Avengers, he was in Danger Man, and like some other stuff as well. But yeah,
I didn't
Danger
write him
Man.
down.
Another Danger Man actor.
Well, there is another Danger Man actor, Alf Joint. Alf Joint is the most prolific man who's been involved in this show so far.
Really?
And I would not even know. So on Wikipedia, which I look at to see if they have production notes sometimes, Alf Joint has his own Wikipedia page, and he's playing some random character, second mechanic. And I'm like, okay, so like, why does this random guy have like a went to his page? Okay, it's not super long. Went to his IMDb page, and this man has 68 credits as stunt coordinator on such big things as Superman, Goldfinger, Star Wars Episode 6, and Doctor Who Battlefield. He was the stunt coordinator or a stunt man on all of those productions. Not only that, he also had he has, besides the 68 stunt credits, 40 acting credits, including such programs as Space 1999, Doctor Who, Secret Agent / Danger Man, as well as The Prisoner in 2 episodes, the second of which is uncredited, as well as The Avengers.
Well, damn. He just plays Mechanic too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
He also, as a stuntman, apparently mentored Vic Armstrong, who holds the Guinness World Record for being the world's most prolific stunt double.
Wow.
Yeah.
Glad you looked him up because, look, I just saw that Mechanic 2 credit and I was like, probably no one.
He also has an uncredited acting role in The Dirty Dozen and also doubles as Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood in the movie Where Eagles Dare,
Wow.
which is a movie I've seen.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, dang.
So there you go. Alf Joint, absolute legend. Apparently he performed a stunt where he plunged 430 feet into the Reichenbach Falls when he doubled for Eric Porter on The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes.
Oh my god. This is all connected.
Not Eric Portman, Eric Porter, not to be confused.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, never mind then. Take back what I said. It's not all connected. It's actually disconnected.
Yeah, so there's Alf Joint for you. Stuntman extraordinaire.
Well, that's all I got for this section and this entire episode.
I'm just looking now, and First Mechanic is also a massive stuntman who acted in stunts such movies as Dr. No, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Curse of the Pink Panther, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, as well as also the first Star Wars and Where Eagles Dare. and Lawrence of Arabia. So I guess the two mechanics were just two stuntmen who they were like, you guys can stand in the back of the shot, I guess.
They probably knew each other.
I wouldn't be surprised. They worked on a lot of movies, a lot of the same movies, I should say. So, so yeah, now I'm all out of things to say. We do have some emails and comments to go through that I'm going to go through quickly. The first of which is from Sergeant Drano. You will have heard the first half of this email regarding Torchwood if you listen to Trust Your Doctor before this episode. But Sergeant Drano, Torchwood and the Prisoner, truly the golden age of decorative vegetable. Hey guys, I want to tell you how glad I am that you finally started your Torchwood coverage and how equally thrilled I am that you started one of my favorite shows of all time, The Prisoner. Here's some show-specific feedback to get us started. The Prisoner. I really like that Dylan is unspoiled, and it's cool that this is Keon's third time through. I'm interested in hearing you guys weigh in on the big mysteries and popular topics generated by the show, in particular Dylan, on a per-episode basis to see how his views of the situation evolves during the journey. Popular topics such as who is number 6, why did he resign his job, what actually was his job? He was a barber. Is there any significance to his choice in clothing on the day of his resignation abduction? Which side runs the village? Who is number 1? Every time I hear that, I think of the damn song, We Are Number 1. I'm still in the middle of your first episode, but so far you guys did not talk about Cobb's mention to number 2 that he's now working for New Masters. What do you make of that? Oh, well, gotta go. Looking forward to the next one. Namaste, Sergeant Drano, Station 7, the door. I think we did mention that, like, at the end of the episode.
Yeah, we did.
That was pretty hinky, so to speak.
Who's number 1?
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I almost thought I was talking to Patrick McGowan for a second. Gooin McGowan.
Gooin McGowan.
Well, I'm keeping all these questions in mind, although the is there any significance to his choice of clothing wasn't one I had considered. So interesting of you to bring that one up, Sergeant Drano. So now I'm going to be thinking about that as well.
I'll leave that to you.
I bet it's because he was a barber and that's just his uniform. Right? Right, guys?
Number 6 should have resigned wearing, like, surgical, like, scrubs, bloodied, and, like...
Imagine if he was a clown and he resigned, like, full clown makeup. For the rest of the show, he's just dressed as a clown. We live in a society.
Kids' birthday parties were just not paying the rent, so he had to resign.
And why he resigned was he overheard some, like, he was at a birthday party and, like, the mom was talking about cheating on her husband with, like, the mailman. He was like, I can't abide by this disgusting display of adultery.
Government secrets.
Just at a birthday party and someone's spilling government secrets. There's the definitive answers to your questions, Sergeant Drano.
That's why he doesn't use sugar, because he's had so many, like, like, sugary, like, disgustingly sweet children's, like, sheet birthday cakes that he can't handle it anymore. Oh my god.
It's all coming together. It's all coming together.
It all makes sense. Why has nobody been clued into this before?
Because everybody just took for granted that he was a spy, and we're the first people out here questioning these hard fought and proven theories that people hold to be true.
Yeah, what would the world do without us?
Probably just go on existing perfectly fine. Probably everything would be fine.
Or even better.
Wow, I don't like the implication that we've single-handedly somehow brought down society. I don't like that implication. Well, thanks for reaching out, Sergeant Drano. I hope that was the response you were hoping for. Keon's just out here like, we suck. We brought down society.
Look, I would kind of argue that on some extremely minuscule level we have, now that we've put the image into people's heads of Patrick McGoohan wearing, like, oversized clown shoes, a red nose.
I would argue that has brought society up. I would argue that has given us all an escapism that we may not necessarily have had before.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you're spot on.
All right, so we do have an email that we received after recording this episode. So this is our free-for-all episode, but this is Dylan and Keon from the future responding to this episode. Mainly because it was conveniently divided by, like, episode. And so may as well put the response to each part of the email in the respective episodes. As far as we can, anyway. So this email is from Sergeant Drano. It covers every episode up to Schizoid Man, but you'll have to wait till next week to find out what we say on the Schizoid Man section of the email. So it begins. Dylan said release order. Based on the ones you've done so far, I think he means the ITC order, i.e. the original UK airing order, possibly the most nonsensical of the viewing orders, but whatever. In your latest Tortured podcast, you briefly mentioned Free For All and that you released a Tortured episode about a week after you record it. Ergo, by my calculations, you watched Free For All about a week ago and should be watching The Schizoid Man right now. I will attempt to catch up to your current position by briefly, in quotes, covering my thoughts on the episodes you've covered so far. And I emailed Drano back and said, your math is pretty good, but you're off by 1 week. So, Arrival. Arrival features an extra long intro sequence, complete with number 6 driving his Lotus 7 in the parking garage, driving under the gate, and walking through the way out door. Love it. I don't think you guys have mentioned this yet, but George Markstein, the other major creative force behind The Prisoner, is the man at the desk that number 6 resigns to. Markstein always mentioned that number 6 is Drake, whereas McGoohan always denied it. Realizing how long this email is, so I'm going to take a nice drink of water before I continue. I've often wondered about number 6's attire on the day he resigns. It looks to me to be all black, and I wonder if he came directly from a funeral. I could see the death of a friend being the catalyst that drives his actions. During his first encounter with number 2, when number 2 directly questions number 6 about his resignation, and we flip through his files, number 2 says some stuff which I think could be directly related to the matter. A most important day. Remember getting ready to meet Chambers, about to become late of the Foreign Office. You were hoping to persuade him to change his mind before the big boys found out. You waited and waited, but he never turned up. A nice guy, Chambers, and so taught. As number 6 starts sneaking around to make his first escape attempt, I'm not sure you guys noticed the clones. One shows up on a tractor to repair number 6's speaker, and then moments later, number 6 meets an identical man who is caring for new plants. The appearance of doubles in the village is a continuing theme of the show, and what might seem like production errors can sometimes be written off as another occurrence of clones. Rover clobbers number 6 on the beach, and he wakes up in the hospital to be told his clothes have been burnt, but then right after the alarm sounds for Cobb jumping out the window, number 6 looks in through a door and sees a dude spouting gibberish with a tiny rover in front of him floating on a stream of water. The nutty dude seems to be wearing number 6's black suit. I always wondered what the heck this meant. Was that really his suit? If it is, why did they tell him they burnt it? And did they tell him that and then want him to see another dude wearing it just to mess with him on purpose? Lastly, the shirt from the black suit is pretty distinctive, and it is the same shirt that McGoohan is wearing in the film Ice Station Zebra, where he plays a rather cold-blooded British agent named David Jones. The movie was filmed in 1968 during the filming of The Prisoner.
Yeah, I've heard of that movie.
I have not heard of this movie.
Yeah, just another indication that McGoohan just, like, both before The Prisoner and after, just had this one wave of an idea and wrote it for his entire life.
Hey man, if you can do that, why not? Kind of what we did with the podcast.
Yeah, slightly less impressive because McGoohan's idea was like this really out there, crazy story about a secret agent village and conspiracies, spy stuff, and our idea was like podcasting about Doctor Who.
Okay, we had a really crazy and out there idea once too, and it was called Wild West Antarctica.
Oh yeah, I remember
and
that.
I can't believe in the 6 years we've done this show, we've never mentioned this. But I'm just gonna throw that out there and let it simmer, and people can speculate on what it was. But, I found our planning document for that the other day, and it actually was kind of brilliant looking back on it. When number 6 leaves the hospital, he has his new village clothes on, complete with badge, as he is given his various credit cards and ID cards. The very first thing he does is get in the taxi, is take the badge off and flick it away with disdain, and you will almost never see him wear a badge after that, at least when he is in his right mind. The taxi takes him to see the new number 2, who seems much less friendly than the old one, but did you catch that this number 2 is dressed the same as number 6? He's the only one that does that, and I always wondered about that. Did number 6 pick out these clothes and number 2 put on the same ones just to mess with him, or did the village give him those particular clothes because they are the same ones the new number 2 was wearing? But if number 6 didn't pick any of them out, then why does he stick with this color scheme from here on out? Mundane questions. Also of note, when number 6 barges in on the new number 2, the big screen is filled with lava lamp imagery. I'm not sure you've picked up on this yet, but I think all the lava lamps are intended to evoke thoughts of Rover, the scary village watchdog. More on this in Free For All. Okay, chimes of Big Bill, he writes, the chimes of Big Bill. Somehow think we made that same joke. In spite of a reference to number 6 being new, it seems to me that this episode should take place a bit later in the series. Number 6 seems way too at ease in the village for this to be episode 2. He behaves like a guy who thinks he has figured out how to play this game. For that reason, I'd put it later. There's a specific reason in this episode why it must precede another episode, Many Happy Returns. I'll get into that when we get to that one. A, B, and C. To me, this episode should come quite a bit later in the series, perhaps even close to the end. It should also be placed immediately after the general for reasons which will become clear when you watch that episode. In terms of the episode order debate, there are several workable theories fans consider when trying to place episodes, in addition to specific clues within the episodes. Some of these theories are: 1. The methods used by the village on number 6 become progressively more severe, more dangerous, and more desperate as the series progresses. This idea is intimated in Arrival. 2. Number 6's time in the village spans more or less about a year. There are a few clues within episodes that support this. I'll point them out as we come to them. 3. Number 6's objectives during the course of the series start very focused on escape, with him being very resistant to any sort of assimilation into the village community, but then gradually shift somewhat away from escape towards undermining village infrastructure, sabotage, and destroying the village from within. Number 6 becomes slightly more invested in helping his fellow prisoners. Which brings us to Free For All. I would place this episode possibly third in the series. Number 6 does not seem very knowledgeable about the village yet. There are references to him being new, and in general he feels rather out of his depth for the duration of this mindbender of a plot. I love the boat escape sequence and that piece of music that plays during the course of it. For lack of a better name, I will call it, quote, the spy theme, unquote. You must surely know the one. At the end of the sequence where Rover is sent out to get number 6, I think this is one of the several times where it looks almost like Rover is birthed from a lava lamp-esque mass of plasm somewhere into the village. I like to think that maybe Rover is supersized white blood cell. Another very obvious example of clones in this episode in the form of the newspaper photographer and the newspaper printer guy. Great episode and a really dark ending for number 6 this time around.
On the topic of the music, I actually found on YouTube, surprisingly, all the Prisoner soundtracks, and all the songs do have names, and they're named on the soundtracks. So,
honestly, that's the most shocking thing I've heard on this entire podcast so far, is that you found the soundtrack to this show on YouTube.
Yep, just literally searched Prisoner soundtrack and bam, there it was.
Shocking. Well, as I proposed this theory in the Free For All episode, I do think that some of the clones can be explained away by just maybe it's twins, but also like numbers are assigned to jobs, so all these people who do the same job look exactly the same. Also, maybe it's part of that simulation theory I proposed in A, B, and C, that the simulation resets every week, and out of laziness, the people who made the simulation just copy and paste the same people. Hey man, it is a valid theory. It's a valid theory.
Yeah, it is.
Which I think also kind of plays into the does it really matter where A, B, and C takes place? In my mind, no. It doesn't matter. And maybe that's blasphemy in the prisoner community. Maybe part of being a prisoner fan is inventing your own watch order. But for me, I don't think the order really matters. I think the story is what matters. And what order you receive that story in. Okay, I'm going to walk that back just a little bit. In many ways doesn't matter. In many ways doesn't matter, in my opinion.
I also think it's some sort of commentary on how, I assume at least how I assume shows were at the time of like Danger Man maybe is more episodic. You can watch them however you want, as are maybe some other shows. And The Prisoner kind of mimics that as well, but does some... it doesn't really do anything weird with it. It just does some timeline shenanigans where it's like some episodes seem to not fit in one order and fit in a different order or something like that.
Yeah, well, that is a lot of really interesting stuff, Sergeant Trainer, especially all your stuff about outfits in Arrival. I know one of the things I've been really interested in is how a lot of the number twos seem to wear the same scarf, but they all seem to wear it differently, which I find really fascinating for no real reason at all, except that it's interesting. I'm just going to call it the number two scarf from now on. One day I'll have my own number two scarf, and I can replace the picture on my Twitter with, instead of me in the Fourth Doctor scarf, it'll be in the number two scarf. But otherwise, I think I responded to everything that I wanted to for that part of the email. Stay tuned for next week, where we respond to the Schizoid Man section of the email. Well, we also have a comment on the website from Saint Clinton, who reaches out to say on the Prisoner 1 Arrival episode, yes, 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 in all caps with multiple exclamation points. This is another of my favorite shows. This is one of the most brilliant shows ever made, in my opinion, with an ending that is classic. Why they even attempted a remake of it is beyond me, and the people involved need to be blacklisted from all forms of entertainment. But I'm thrilled that you guys are going through this show. Well, St. Clinton, if you buy into my theory that I proposed today that the numbers are just assigned to jobs, maybe the remake is the exact same village, but later on when a new number 6 has come into the village. I don't actually know like if that fits into anything of any of the two programs, but... Also,
yeah, neither do I, since I haven't seen the remake.
Also, St. Clinton, I hope you buckle up for when Keith's on the show and reveals that he actually enjoys the remake.
Yeah. I think you're totally spot on, St. Clinton, about the ending of this show. It's an absolute classic. And it's unparalleled, in my opinion.
Unparalleled? I don't know. The ending to Blake 7 was pretty classic as well.
That is true. But I think that's definitely something that we'll have to talk about when we watch episode 17, is like what's more shocking and what's better. The ending to The Prisoner or the ending to Blake 7?
And is shocking necessarily better?
Yeah, well, I think that's why we need to separate it into two, because, like, you know, one of these two is going to be more shocking. I have my ideas already about which one it is.
Blake. It's Blake, right?
No, it's this one.
It's assignment 6, right? Like, that was pretty shocking, too.
That was pretty shocking, actually.
Why do all these old British programs end on shocking endings, except Star Cops, which just kind of died and fizzled out?
Yeah, even Children of the Stones, like a kid's show that just turns all its characters into stone.
Yeah.
And repeats the cycle.
Yeah, what's going on here?
I know we said this back when we were watching Sapphire and Steel, but, like, I totally understand the whole Scarred for Life meme/book now.
Yeah, what's going on here? What's going on here? On that note, I have nothing else to say except thank you, Sergeant Trainer and St. Clinton, for reaching out. It's always good to hear from both of you.
Yep.
And if there's anybody else who would like to reach us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Free for All and the democratic process. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, all at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time, we're going to be watching one of the trippiest episodes of The Prisoner, The Schizoid Man. But until then, the end.